Today we're gonna film an interview with a great person we're happy to host here in SFT Trading, and we are sitting in Negro
Cooperativa Negra.
Cooperativa Negra.
How you say in
Cooperative Черный.
Cooperative Черный.
Yeah, very nice pronunciation. So this is Camilo Merizalde. He is representing his own project, multinational project, which is called Santuario. And today we're gonna speak about the project itself. And as Camilo is a big experienced professional in activities on the coffee farms and with the processing of coffee, we're gonna speak about these things as well. So Camilo, could you, first of all, could you tell me how did you fell in love with the coffee? What's your story of relationships with the coffee?
Okay, almost 20 years ago, I was working in a food commercial company in Colombia, and I started visiting many international international food conventions, and many people, they start asking me about good quality coffees from Colombia. And being from Colombia, I assumed that we had really good coffees, but the reality was that the quality in Colombia 20 years ago was going down because of the new varieties that they were promoting in Colombia. So it took me like 2.5 years to start working on this project. First, I started talking to the local committees in Popayán. And finally, after doing a lot of research with Claudia's father, we started the Santuario project, the initial farm in Popayán in Colombia.
That's good. And could you kindly tell what was the problem with the varieties in Colombia? They were more productive, but you know, less quality, or?
Yeah, we used to have Típicas and Bourbons in Colombia back in the 60s and 70s and the 80s. And because of the weather changes, the local people, they had to move to different varieties resistant to the roya, to the leaf rust, and also looking for more production. So basically, the Colombian coffee started moving from the old varieties to the new varieties. And because of the weather, people that used to have the coffee like around 1,300, 1,400 meters high, which was a really good altitude, it was really hot. So many people, they didn't even choose the new varieties. They finalized the coffee business. And so we start getting, like, at the end of the 80s, a lot of downgrade on quality in Colombia.
And okay, I see, thank you. And you wanted to fix it somehow, I mean, to make a good quality product yourself.
Yeah, and actually my idea was to create a farm with the quality that we used to have, like back in the 50s and the 60s, with shade trees, really high altitude, different varieties, different techniques. So that was when we created Santuario.
Perfect. You know, the next thing I would like to know, was there a moment in your coffee, let's say, career, which was the most vivid, which changed really something for you, like the most vivid moments, in your coffee practice?
For me, the turning point was, like I told, like you have seen on the presentations, the picture that I received on 2010 from Inteligencia Coffee. When they receive the coffees, they come and they embrace the bags. So I knew that we were doing a really good job with the coffees that we had. So that moment for me was like the turning point in my career.
We should show people the picture in this video.
Yeah.
It's a very nice one. Yeah, that's perfect. So let's make it a little bit more practical, and I think for me a very interesting question is, as you experiment a lot with different coffees and you have an opportunity and a project in different coffee origins, there is a big question for everyone: what influences the taste the most? The variety, the terroir the coffee is grown in, or maybe the processing of the coffee? As you had an opportunity to experiment a lot about this. Maybe you have some kind of answer for us.
Yeah. Basically, we need the variety to start with. We can say that maybe 80-70% of a good quality coffee, it's the variety, but then you need the origin, then you need the altitude, then you need the weather, then you need the process. So basically, if you have a really beautiful variety, but you don't control
everything after
that, you won't have it. You can also get really good coffees from any variety, but when you have a good variety, it's easier to bring more beautiful flavors out of the coffees.
So the taste is inside the variety, and everything after is to preserve and make it to taste even better, basically.
Yeah, the genetics on, like, you know, like if you go to any Ethiopian coffees, they're really beautiful, but if they don't do a good job, the coffees end up being just normal coffee.
That's true. Low grade and etc. etc. Okay, I think now also it's time to say something about your project. What makes it special? What makes Santuario project really special compared to everything else in general? And what is it in general? What's your goals? What's the main idea? The philosophy? Something like that.
Okay, Santuario today we have our own projects in Colombia, Costa Rica, Brazil, and Mexico. We control the whole process of the coffees. We control the packing, the milling, the exports, the logistics, and we also come to places like this, for example in Russia, that we help our clients promote the coffee.
Yeah.
So I can say that we're the only company doing that we have the projects at origin. We control everything. We have a manual to process the coffees. We have people from Santuario that they go to the different origins. They spend, for example, in Brazil, we spent 2 months, the last crop. We're moving to Mexico in a few months, and we're going to be there for 2.5 months. Then we go to Costa Rica as well because they are similar timing. And one of the key ingredients is that when we process a coffee, for example, we're coming from Brazil, whatever we learn and all the experiences, we can apply it in Mexico. And then from Mexico, we apply it to Costa Rica and then to Colombia. So we're like going around the harvest time throughout the regions, and we're getting a lot of experience. So we can actually apply, and then we learn every year. So it's like a learning curve every year.
That's very interesting. It should be bringing the results already, applying different practices which have never been to the origin. Perfect. Well, as far as we got what influences the taste the most, like its variety, how do you think, can you describe maybe your vision of the future of what happens to the coffee in the origin nowadays, in the closest future, like changes in harvesting, and of course the most interesting part, what can be changed in the processing in general?
Working in, like for example, you know, when you work in different countries, you have to face different challenges. Regarding the harvest, Costa Rica right now is the biggest challenge that we have, because every year we need to bring people from Panama to work with us. So like 2 months before the harvest time, like actually within this time of the year, we have to contact the people from Panama, and basically they are people from Bocas del Toro, like indigenous groups, that they come to Costa Rica to work. And I can say like almost every year we need to trade them again because we don't get the same people. So it's kind of challenging because every year we spend like at least a month training them.
Just explaining what they should do.
For the quality that, you know, that we need, the way that they need to harvest. Colombia is easier because we have the people around the farms. So basically there are people that they live within the surroundings and that they come to the farm, so it's really easy. In Brazil, it's a similar situation because mainly all the people, they live next to the farm. And Mexico also, we get a lot of people that they move from different regions to the places that they have the coffee. So harvesting is a big challenge. Every time we see less people that they want to work at the harvest.
Less.
So, yeah. So
that's a problem.
Yeah, it's and I think in the future it's going to be
even worse.
Even worse.
And why is that happening? Why people are? Because the countries are kind of poor. We know that they have some other, possibility for employment, or why is
basically they, like many of the people, they they want to do better jobs. They move to the cities looking for better opportunities, and then they never come back to the countryside. So you can see the same in any of these countries.
I wonder if it's going good there in the cities for them, or they are just staying there, though it's not that good. I don't think so, because in the cities it's really difficult as well. But some of them, they come back to the countryside, but mainly they think if they go to the city, they are going to have a better future. That's interesting. That's very interesting, actually. What will be the solution for that then? Like paying more to the people who are picking the coffees to make it more prestige, or at least profitable to do that? Or
actually, I can say that in the case of Cauca in Popayán, we pay maybe 40% more than the regular people. And some of the projects in Colombia, we pay almost double as much.
So you're always supplied with the people, but in general that's a problem, and people have to think of something to keep harvesting.
And we have the same
coffee.
situation in Mexico, for example. Right now, we're getting a lot of people from Guatemala that they come to Mexico to work, but because we pay better.
That's interesting. Okay, but let's try to stay, on the sunny side of that. And I think at least that a lot of things are changing about the processing of coffee. Like people are trying new things, doing experiments. What do you think will happen to the taste profile of the cup we're drinking today? Will be changing or something with this, processing science going further?
We have seen maybe in the past 4 or 5 years how the good varieties, they taste even better with the processing, and we have seen how not really good varieties, they also taste much better. So the more we learn about the process of the coffees, the more profiles that we're gonna get. In the case of, for example, Brazil this year, some of the coffees that we cupped here in Moscow, people, they were amazed with the flavors. We saw the acidity, we saw the sweetness, flavors, aromas that we never tasted before in a Brazilian coffees, because many people, they were saying that. So I think the more we learn, the more flavors that we're going to experience from different, regions.
That's interesting, because so we have a really good chance, even maybe because for now there are some lots from different companies which are very, very expensive, because they've tried some experimental processing with them, and the taste is really different to everything which, for example, you have ever before tried in the cup. But these types of processing, do they have a chance to become commercial, and like these taste profiles to become a wider, and wider, affordable to everyone, or at least to more people?
I can say that almost 80% of our processes, they end up being commercial after 2 or 3 years. Because we find a way, to do it better, less expensive, faster, and achieve the same quality. So our challenge is to experiment every year, cup the coffees, check if the clients, they like it, and then we need to bring the solutions within the farm, financially speaking, to have a economic viable product.
That's very interesting. So, including your activity of your project, we have a chance to experience some really new tastes of the coffee in different coffee shops or at home pretty soon, because the industry is going further and it's changing. That's very interesting. Let's talk a little bit about the crazy stuff maybe, because you've been experimenting a lot with the processing of the coffee. What is the craziest experiment you have ever made with the coffee, and what results did it give to you?
It's secret.
It's secret.
No, just kidding. No, basically, like we were talking on the meetings that we had. We have like at least 20 or 20 different combinations. But for example, one of the coffees that we did, it was a cherry. We took the cherries from the tree, we washed them, and then we fermented the cherries like for almost 20 days on a cold
on the cold fermentation,
on a cold tank. And at the end, when we were tasting the coffee, it tastes like cranberries. So we couldn't tell if it was a coffee or a cranberry, for example.
Oh, so it was just like a juice or something.
Yeah, it was really amazing. Then the other one that we tried was a fermentation. Like we depulp the coffees and then we ferment it in a cold tank also. And at the end, it was tasting like vanilla, like a vanilla smoothie with milk, really heavy. So it was like a totally different flavor. So we're just learning, because scientifically, it's really difficult to test it, because it would be really expensive if we start sending all the samples to all these different labs. So we have to then we need to learn
the best testing,
the different methods that we need to do. And at the end, if we see that we can do it consistent, we will repeat it, and then we'll try to make it commercial.
And these experiments you are talking about, because as far as I know, you have the cold fermentation facility in Brazil, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about the Brazilian coffee we are talking now.
But we're doing, what is the idea that when we, for example, what we had in Mexico last year, we have it in Brazil this year. So, and then whatever we experimented in Brazil, then we buy the same instruments for Costa-Rica, and in Colombia the idea is that in 2 years we're going to have everything like in Mexico. And within 3-4 years the idea is to have all the origins with the same equipment, so we can do whatever we need to do in any of the countries that we're working.
Sounds perfect. Camilo, can you tell a little bit more about cold fermentation? Like what are the results, what are the processes which are happening to the coffee there? Because not everybody knows what it is and how it works.
Okay, actually, the fermentation, it's a biochemical process. The sugars, they start to decompose. That's, when I explain why we should actually harvest with really big sweet contents on the cherries, because at the end the sugars are the fuel that propels the fermentation throughout the whole process. So when you do it at regular temperature, depending on the weather that you are, the humidity, the tanks that you use, and many variables, it will take between 12-13 hours all the way to 36-40 hours. So the complexity of the coffee is actually built within the time frame of 36 hours. When you do it cold fermentation, it's going to take, we have done it like 10 days, 12 days.
Maximum.
Yeah. No, a little bit more than that, 14 days. So the flavors become really rare. We don't have a chemical knowledge to understand what's going on, because at the end, the only thing that we control is the pH of the product, and the sugar content. Because if the pH goes up or down, we stop it, because then the flavors are going to be ruined. So we try to keep the sugar content really level with the pH until everything comes low, and then we start cupping. And sometimes, you know, we try coffees really bad with really bad flavors, but sometimes we try coffees with beautiful flavors like the vanilla smoothie type coffee that I told you.
The thing, you have to experiment more and to understand how this instrument really works to, and it will give some really unique tastes as far as I get it.
And one of the things that we have seen, for example, the wine industry, they have, I don't know if you have seen these beautiful labs that they have with all the instruments that they measure many chemical reactions. So we don't have that, because, you know, if we want to have that, it will be really expensive, tons of money, you know, invested in. So the product will be too expensive to sell. So we need to go just by trial and error, try, do it again, take notes, a lot of data, try it again. So it takes time.
That's interesting. And Camilo, the last thing I would like to know, not to take too much of your time, is to speak about the varieties, basically. Where do you think are the most, you know, rich varieties grow in the world? Like, what varieties do you yourself like the most in the cup, maybe, or to work with the farming and the processing? Like, which are your favorites?
You know, I'm always saying that Típica is like a really neat variety, because with Típica we have won many championships, and even we have some Típica that they taste better than any Ethiopian or any geisha variety. And Típica, it's been in the market for many, many years. It's not like, you know, these new varieties, many people, it's like a new trend to have geishas or to have this. Then they, you know, it's 2-3 years, a lot of people buying, and then they stop doing it. So for me, Típica is like a constant product that you can achieve really good quality, and the future with Típica is going to be excellent too, because, you know, there is a lot of people tasting and building big farms with geisha and different varieties, but at the end, if they don't know how to process the varieties, it's going to be a big challenge for them, and they're going to end up just being regular coffees.
But with a high price.
Yeah, yeah, high price, low quality.
Well, okay, thank you, Camilo. And what is actually the future of Santuario project, as far, like, what is around the corner, as I said, what is awaiting?
Okay, we have so far Colombia, Brazil, Costa-Rique, and Mexico. We have a lot of work to do in these 4 countries. For example, in Colombia, we're building a milling facility in Huila. We're building another milling facility in Cauca with my partners in Colombia. We have a big challenge with Santuario in Popayán, because the idea is to replant a lot of coffees there, because the farm has been producing coffees for almost 20 years.
It's your first farm, as far as...
So what are we doing is we're taking all the experience from all these farms around the world, and we're taking that into Santuario again. So we want to build a new Santuario. It's going to take time, but, you know, we have been in the business for 20 years. Brazil is going really well. Brazil is actually growing a lot. Santuario Sul, we are planting like almost double as much as we have today. We are working with a lot of local farmers to promote micro lots from Brazil. Costa Rica, it's also a big challenge, because we have really good coffees, and we're just trying to build a new project in Costa Rica with a new milling facility, with new farmers that they're going to supply coffees to us from the Dota region. And in Mexico, this is our second year, so we're learning in Mexico a lot. And then we're coming to Papua New Guinea. We're looking at Papua to see if we can actually build a really good project there. And in the States, we're also building a project in California. And we're also looking at Africa. So the idea for Santuario project is to have at least 7 to 8 different origins, well controlled, with really good quality coffees.
That's nice. And as you know, a cherry on the pie, could you tell a little bit more about California project? Because everybody is getting a little bit shocked when they see like a farm near the beach in California, close to LA, as you said. Just could you tell something about it?
Okay, many people they don't know that California, they have been growing coffee for almost 10 years. Yeah. They have small farmers. I mean, really small, like around 200 trees, but somehow they have really good quality coffees. So we start cupping the California coffees like 3 years ago, and we really like the quality. And then we start looking at the possibility to build a farm, commercially speaking, because California, it's really expensive to produce coffee. So you need at least some size, you know, to be economical, like an economical viable program. And then I team up with 2 American guys and 1 guy from Ethiopia, and we start creating the program. So we're in the process of building the farm. It's taking more time than we actually were planning at the beginning, but we think that maybe within 3 years, 4 years, we're gonna have coffees from California with different varieties.
3-4 years.
Yeah,
we are waiting.
Okay.
Though it's not gonna be cheap, I guess. Well, but that's very interesting. Well, Camilo, thank you very much for all this interesting information and for that wonderful talk. Really enjoy that really much. So to finish that up, I would like to say that Santuario project is collaborating with SFT Trading, and we're hoping to bring a lot of coffees from projects of Santuario to Russia, so you can enjoy them. And we'll keep contacting Camilo, and I hope we'll have more talks like that soon enough.
Anytime.
Yeah, it was a great pleasure to host you, Camilo.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Hope to come back pretty soon. See you later. See you in Colombia, Costa Rica, Brazil.
Everywhere, and California, please.
Okay, good.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.